In this video, I show you an updated tour of the Nerd Cave. But before we get into today's video, just want to share with you what the GGGGs are for this month. Each month, Bob the Beholder picks some of my Patreon supporters to receive gratitude gifts. And for this month of August of 2022, we have this printed and painted small cottage from City of Furwood. We have 2 all-in pledges for Unchained Games 3D coins. We have this Creality Falcon laser engraver. If you haven't seen that video, go ahead and check that out here. And I wanted to show you this cork board that I laser engraved for one of my children. And then finally, $100 to go towards a crowdfunder, which my Patreon supporters are currently voting upon. Use the links below to go to my Patreon page to find out more details on how you can get in on that. I also wanted to give a quick shout out to one of my Patreon supporters who just started a podcast called The Parallax View, and this is from Richard McBain. So use the link below to go check out his new podcast, and his first podcast was actually with Tom Tullis, who is the creator of Fat Dragon Games. That was a really fascinating interview, especially about how Tom sees the future of where his company might be going with new technologies that are emerging beyond 3D printing. And then the second interview actually with me, yours truly. So go ahead and check out that link below and just be able to turn that on and do some painting or some hobbying. I love listening to podcasts while I'm doing that. So go ahead and provide some support for this new podcast. My very second video for this channel was actually touring my Nerd Cave down here in the basement. And a number of you have asked for an update, as that was 6 years ago and a lot has changed. Now, for those of you who are interested, towards the end of the video, I'm going to go more in detail of all of the miniatures that are in my cabinets. But I'm going to save that for last, since many of you might just want an overview of what's inside of my Nerd Cave. But go ahead and use the timestamps below if you are interested in that. Otherwise, let's go ahead and dive right in. All right, so here when we come downstairs, we are first greeted by all of these cabinets of miniatures. And again, I'll go more in detail with all of those minis towards the end of this tour. But I want to show you the table. This is the How to Build Gaming Table for less than $150. This was, again, 6 years ago, back in 2016. I don't think it's possible with wood prices as they are now to build this table for that cheap, but still one of the cheaper options, and still the reason why this channel exists is because this video went viral. And right now I have a couple of projects going on. Oathsworn just delivered. I've been waiting for this game for so long, so I am actually going to be putting on hold all of my other projects to actually start painting this, because I really want to play that quickly. For my Creality Falcon laser video, I did make this, which I think turned out really, really well. Just even a bigger print bed than my 60 watt laser that I have right now. And I managed to go ahead and just glue all of these pieces together. So this is a really cool dice box. And then glued this cross together as well, which turned out super cool. Over here, I've been charging up my Oculus Quest. I've been lately going on checking out what all of this metaverse is about, and been going on Horizon. Been disappointed because almost everyone there is 10 and under. Can't find an adult really to interact with. Here I am continuing to work on my Zombicide 3D board, and this is the Green Horde tiles that I am creating, and these are the flooded streets. So I'm getting ready to pour some 2-part epoxy resin into these to represent the flooded streets. So I'll be done with that project relatively soon. Here I have some craft foam because need to update my daughter's Hello Kitty Mandalorian suit for cosplaying, hopefully this upcoming weekend at KokoroCon. And here are all the bins to store my 3D Zombicide board. If you haven't seen that video, make sure to check that out here. Really happy with how that turned out. Now this is a rare situation where none of my FDM printers are running, and I was able to actually complete painting up my backlog of terrain. So here I have some printable scenery, terrain that I recently painted up. So these shelves over here are primarily terrain, whereas those ones over here are all miniatures. A little bit of terrain up there, but my buildings are primarily over here, along with a few games, but mostly this is where I'm putting my terrain. In this corner I have some cosplay props, as well as this recent edition I did hang up some shelves because I just had no space and no room. And even now I'm maxed out with space. I really don't have any other space to put in more terrain. So that means a lot of giveaways for my Patreon supporters. And right now I'm taking a break from printing any terrain because I want to enjoy the fact that I have finally painted up all of my terrain and don't really have a backlog. Over here, usually my son's computer is here, but we just took him back to college, so that's why that's empty. But this is my daughter's computer, and this is my son's manga collection, which both he and I and my youngest daughter were totally into manga and anime. And so we watch anime here because it's connected to my daughter's computer, and we're mostly watching Crunchyroll on the TV. And then here is a bunch of my games, and it's overflowing, even down here to the floor, up here on top, and then even down here I have some games down here. So yeah, I've totally run out of shelf space on my Parallax shelves, and I have a ton more games actually in storage bins, which we will see some of them in the next room. So overall, this is really just a nice space just to be able to game, to play, to paint. Those lamps are lighting just for my YouTube videos because I primarily film over there in the corner. But overall, it's relatively the same as it was before, but now it's just overcrowded because I just have a ton of prints and games. So let's go ahead and go back here, which was meant to be a storage room, but this is where my office is at. And behind this door I have a bunch of more bins with both terrain and games. I have these two boxes I haven't even opened up yet from Awakened Realms. Here's Nemesis Lockdown. The Otherfields expansion, second wave, came in. And then over here is my workstation for work, because I primarily work from home, so I am able to have multiple monitors, which I definitely need for work. And then this is my personal computer. Let me go ahead and show you. So this is where I do all my video editing. I actually use Sony Vegas, which I found to be the most stable when I first started video editing, because Premiere was so buggy it crashed all the time. So Sony Vegas I found to be the most stable, and I've been using that ever since. And this is my viewing monitor here. Recently got this Blue Yeti microphone from the suggestion of one of my Patreon supporters, Richard McBain. He suggested this, and I'm super glad that I got it because this is an outstanding mic, and I'll be able to do better voiceovers than what I've been using, which was my lapel mic previously, which would pick up all of the sound of my furnace whenever I would record in here. But the Blue Yeti doesn't pick that up, which is great. So really happy about that. And then I actually have a screen back here to pull down to cover the back, so that when I am streaming, I'm able to just have a blank background because all of that stuff looks pretty messy. Because our family storage is over here, down here, but I have taken over a lot of it with just more gaming stuff and supplies. This is the sword, one of the swords from Genshin Impact that my son used for his cosplay. And then I have a bunch of other stuff. So this is just food storage over here. But on this side used to be my plaster casting station for when I was doing a lot of her starts, but I have sold all of those. And now it is converted into my resin printing station. So I have 2 resin printers, and I have this sink that I installed. and am able to do all of my resin printing and curing. This is my homemade UV lights that I put in this metal bowl to cure my resin prints. Right now I am printing up more of the, they're not called Seraphon, but the one-page rules version of them, the lizard folk. Can't remember 100% right now what it is, but I'm printing more of those out for my lizard man army. And then up here is actually my old school mold that I made for Mandalorian helmets. So I can tell you how super convenient it is to have a sink down here. And all I did was I used this plastic, I don't remember what it's called, but it's not copper piping, and really easily was able to hook it into my existing copper pipes. And then finally over here is my painting station. Oh, here's my laser. My I upgraded to a 60-watt laser. And here is my painting station, which I just love having a dedicated painting space so that I don't have to remove it all the time between gaming and painting. And this current project is from Massive Darkness 2, which I'm going to hurry up and finish up this batch, and then going to remove it all because I want to get started on the Oathsworn miniatures. So I'm going to put a hold on my Massive Darkness painting and going to do Oathsworn instead. I just love the fact that I have this really small screen hooked up to a laptop so that I can listen to podcasts and watch YouTube videos while I'm painting, or use it as painting references for my miniatures. So if you don't have a dedicated painting space, I really suggest that you get one, because I feel like that's one of the major roadblocks from getting miniature painting done, is the whole thought and idea of needing to set up your paint station and then tear it down is such a huge mental roadblock. So having a dedicated space where you can leave all of this stuff out and be able to paint, I think, is one of the major ways that you can avoid or you can start working more on that pile of gray plastic. And then over here on this side I have a bunch of our cosplay items that are tucked away back here, as well as just up here on my shelves. More terrain, more games, more cosplay items. So I feel really blessed by being able to have this space and being able to do all of my hobbying and gaming down here. And my wife is also happy that I have this dedicated space, because that means it doesn't creep upstairs, because I don't play on our dining room table or anything like that. I really do keep my hobby confined down here, which she is thankful for. So here is the original cabinets that I started off with. Again, all of these cabinets are from IKEA, including these. These white ones are the famous Billy bookcases with the add-on doors. And I think you can still get them. They might have changed their names. I'm not 100% sure, but I still think you can get Billy bookcases from IKEA. And I really like these glass doors. Now, these glass doors cost more than the actual bookcase. So just keep that in mind. And then I added this little touch of having D20s as the door handles for all of the cabinet doors. Now, I think it's worth it just because it keeps all of the dust down that can accumulate on your miniatures. I still get, it still gets dusty in there, but a lot less than if I did not have doors. But over here, I have most of my D&D miniatures, and these are some of my very first miniatures, which most of them are from Reaper, and they are the original metal miniatures. So this guy here, I know has, they've converted most of their metal miniatures into Reaper bones. And I do have a few of the Reaper bones. So for example, this guy is a Reaper bone. It's not plastic. It feels like vinyl to me. But yeah, I've used most of these miniatures in my D&D campaigns. These are pre-painted miniatures, the collectible miniatures, that I've also used along with this shelf. And then down here there's some pre-paints there in the back, but all of these here in the front are painted up. I think these orcs are all Bones miniatures. And then this is from Archon Studios, the pets that I painted up as well. And then back here are a bunch of miniatures, as well as this shelf from the original Descent game, first edition, which was what got me back into miniature board gaming. And then up front here are a couple of miniatures from the Silver Tower Games Workshop game, which I never finished up all of the miniatures. Here's a couple more pre-paints. And then down here is a whole army set of, can't remember the name, I'll post here on the screen, but I have a big old painted up army. And then over here on this side are just some random 3D prints, resin prints that I have painted up. This shelf here is a mixture of both Super Dungeon Explorer as well as, is it Arcadia Quest? Yes. So this is all of my chibi miniatures, which I think is really fun. And then this level is primarily Sword and Sorcery, the original box. And again, didn't paint up all of those miniatures, but have most of them painted here. Back there is the Gloomhaven miniatures. And then there is my main beholder, which I really like this beholder a lot. This is from, I think, Gale Force 9. But for a long time, a picture of him was my channel icon. And then down here we have miniatures from Arena the Contest, which I'm going to have a lot more. And then more random miniatures down here, some 3D prints, some pre-paints, even more down here. And then these were the original Fat Dragon Village prints that I've made. Now that I have the Zombicide set, I'll probably just get rid of these because they don't really work with my current set. This cabinet has some random 3D prints. These are 2 dragons that I finished up from Arena the Contest. Have a lot more to do. This set is sort of my cyberpunk miniatures. And I've done a lot of videos for most of these things, how to paint videos. This is my terrain. Sorry, the lighting isn't that great, but I just have a ton of random terrain that I can use as dressing for my dungeons. And then here, up here at the very top, are actually not 3D printed, but these are all miniatures for Eclipse. These aren't the official miniatures, but I found someone who actually made these, and you can order these plastic kits and do some conversions in order to have the different stages of each of the factions. So I really like those ships a lot. Here are some Riot Quest minis, some Galaxy Defenders over here. This is some of the larger dinosaurs from my Lizardman army from One Page Rules. These are some pre-paints from AT-43. And this is the original Dust Tactics miniatures. Here are some Space Marines. 2 guys from Wolfenstein. Still need to paint up that entire box. Some various Marines and the Marines from the Space Hulk set. Here are all of my Star Wars X-Wing miniatures, which I haven't played this game in a long time. I'm still in first edition. Here is a bunch of miniatures that I painted up different factions for Kill Team, as well as the miniatures from Blackstone Fortress. Here's my Orc army. This is one of the miniatures, one of the bigger miniatures from Etherfields, which I think looks really cool. Back there I have some Tyranids, more terrain. This shelf down here is all of my Street Fighter miniatures, which I just love these miniatures. Even as a collector, they just look so awesome. So I love the fact that I have a whole shelf full of Street Fighter miniatures and didn't even need to paint them. Here is Mythos, my Mythos miniatures. This is my Hero Quest miniatures. This is Alter Quest, more Alter Quest. Then down here I have some Moonstone miniatures, and then this is all of my miniatures for Blitzball. So I have 4 different factions for Blitzball, as well as some terrain back there. Here are the ships for Snap Ships. Down here are some minis for Core Space. This is for Imperial Assault. This is for the Mars Attacks game from Mantic. The Star Wars miniature game with some Hearst Arts terrain. Now going to this shelf over here, and I do apologize, I don't have the greatest lighting on my shelves. But up at the very top, I have a ton of Crossmaster pre-painted miniatures, and I bought most of these when they went on clearance sale. So I just think they look really cool and fun. And then the next 3 shelves is all Shadows of Brimstone, including the Asian set, which is Forbidden Fortress. So I have massive numbers of miniatures. I mean, look at how many stacks of these miniatures that I have for both Forbidden Fortress and Shadows of Brimstone. So yeah, this is the largest number of miniatures that I have for any single game. This is Zombicide Invader, and then this is all Black Plague and Green Horde. And here are miniatures painted up for Conan, the board game from Monolith. Here's some of the bosses for the Zombicide games. Down here are my Kings of War, as well as Warmahordes. And I don't play either of those games, but I still have the miniatures from them. Once I paint up miniatures, it is super hard for me to get rid of them. These are miniatures from Rune Wars. These are miniatures from Rune Wars. Here are miniatures from Warcry, a couple of different factions there, as well as I love my goblins back there. Here are some miniatures from Mantic when I tried out Vanguard. And then here is a bunch of miniatures from Heroes of Land, Air, and Sea. I have a complete painted set. This is from Cursed City, one of the biggest disappointments I've ever had in a board game. Here are my Marvel Crisis Protocol, some of them. And then, to be honest, I don't remember which skirmish game these miniatures are from. So if you guys recognize them, go ahead and make a comment below, because I can't remember. So over here on this side, I have my larger miniatures. So from various games, from Archon Studio, there's a dragon. We have Kingdom Death Monster back there. We have Shadows of Brimstone and Forbidden Fortress. Down here, the next 2 are all Kingdom Death Monster. Here are some of the bosses, and then here are a bunch of survivors, as well as this big guy, the Dragon King from Kingdom Death Monster, and then this is just a random one from HeroClix. And then over here, I'm not going to show you in detail, but I just have a bunch of trees and various miscellaneous terrain for the tabletop. So there you go, that is the Nerd Cave, and I'm curious to see how things are going to change in maybe another 6 years when I do a similar update. But I'm really happy with this space. It feels really fun to not only be able to play games, but also to hobby a lot. As you can see, that is one of my primary interests in tabletop gaming. Go ahead and like the video and subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so already. That really helps me out a lot. And go ahead and make comments below with your own nerd space, gaming space, and ways that you might want to improve. Happy gaming! We'll see you next time.